All right.
Thank you, David Trolley. Thank you. That's the truth, you know. You're whole, perfect, and complete. And as we realize our wholeness and our perfection and our completeness, we take a moment now to move into our opening prayer. And this morning, during our opening prayer time, well, I'm sure most of you know by now, but our beloved John Duffy made his transition on Friday morning. Joy was there by his side, and John Duffy John Duffy has been a pillar of this ministry since it opened up. John Duffy has been a pillar in unity since, my goodness, for years now. He knew some of the most, well, he was on his honeymoon cruise, Joy and John, with Phil and Dorothy Pearson. And that takes you back, and what a blessing that was to be able to do that, I'm sure. So let's move into prayer now. And John, we invite you to join us in prayer this morning. For this morning, we give thanks for this human experience, and we give thanks for our divinity. And John, we give thanks for the time that you spent with us during this human experience and for the human experience that you brought to our planet. We also give thanks for knowing that each of us is divine, that each of us are spiritual beings. And John, right now, we connect with you as the spiritual being that we all are. And we say, John, to your ongoing, we see you knowing that you are whole, complete, with us at every moment, that in the midst of your divinity, you bring that laughter of yours, that peace of yours, that truth that you share, and the positiveness that you brought to us every Sunday morning. And we wrap our arms around Joy in the midst of this prayer time. We see her knowing that this spiritual community is here for her, and that love is the divine harmonizer. And there certainly was so much love between John and Joy. And so we see that love carrying forth as she moves through this human experience, carried forth in the midst of her divinity, in the midst of John's divinity, and in the midst of all divinity. Thank you, God, for John Duffy. Thank you, God, for truth. Thank you, God, for love. And so it is. Amen.
I am free. I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free. I am unlimited right now. I am free. I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free. I am unlimited right now.
And now, let us prepare our hearts and minds for a time of meditation. I invite you to find a comfortable position in your seats. Close your eyes if you wish. Take a few deep breaths. Let go of any distractions or worries that may be on your mind.
heart. You are the hands. You are the voice of spirit on earth. And who you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. You are the heart. You are the hands. You are the voice of spirit on earth. And who you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. You're a blessing to the world. You're a blessing to the world.
And so as we continue to breathe deeply into that space, feeling the blessing that each one of us represents in the world, the blessing that unity of Davis is in the collective consciousness of humanity, that we are breathing in a sacred space here and now. There's nowhere else to be, nothing else to do. And like the beauty of nature around us, we might take its lead and allow the leaves, the masks, the roles, the labels to gently fall away with each breath that we take. And with each gentle leaf falling from the tree of our being, feel the weightlessness, the heaviness fall away, and the weightlessness rise within you, such that you are lifted up into the awareness that God is all that you are. And that while you may, just as the leaf or the tree may once again bloom leaves of labels and coverings and roles and positions and titles that serve their purpose, you may one day pick all of those up again. But for now, you need only be naked, unvarnished, unguarded self before the divine. Free, whole, complete. Let us just rest in the stillness of this awareness. And once again, take in a deep cleansing breath, feeling the connection to your body temple, the breath that connects you to the earth beneath your feet, all the way up to the top of your head, shining out of the crown chakra as the light and the consciousness of the Christ being that you are, connecting you with all other beings present on this Zoom, but also awake and aware and present on the planet at this time. In temples and mosques and various forms of sacred gatherings, we are one with a collective consciousness that prays and breathes for humanity at this time. And we give thanks for the opportunity to be one with it, connected in it, and expressing as it. For this and so much more, I truly give thanks and simply allow it to be. And so it is.
Deep within my inner space, God the great I am does dwell. In oneness I express God in this place. I feel joy in this truth I have to tell. God is me, God is you, God is forever true. From the world we see to the spreading galaxies, God shines through. You're with me, right by my side. I can feel you hold me when I want to hide. Surrendering to you, I give thanks and pray for your constant love. I'm grateful every day. God is me, God is you, and God is forever true. From the world we see to the spreading galaxies, God shines through. Well, I know God is everything I see. A tender snowflake, a strong oak tree. My senses tell of God's story. The web of life so full of glory. God is me, God is you, and God is forever true. From the world we see to the spreading galaxies, God shines through. God shines through. God shines through.
The music ministry of David Trolley. Thank you, David. That's the truth, you know. Thank you. Well, I'm excited to have our guest speaker here this morning, Reverend Dr. David Alexander, who I understand is surrounded by moving boxes. He and his wife just moved. Yes, he and his wife just moved to Portland, Oregon. And thank you for being with us this morning, David. I'm excited to have you here. I went to your website and as I mentioned earlier, I saw the title of one of your books, Recovery from the Lie of Whiteness, Becoming Aware. And we need to bring this man in here. We did a lot of talking about that, recovering from the lie of whiteness a couple years ago. So it's good to revisit it. And then you have a new book out too, Freedom from Discord. And so looking forward to seeing that. And I have to make a confession, Dr. David. I went to AI this morning and I said, our guest speaker today is, and here's his website, and give me an introduction for our service. And I thought it was lovely, so I'm going to use that. But I wanted to give AI credit for it. So here's our guest speaker today, according to AI. Reverend Dr. David Alexander is a dynamic teacher, author, and speaker dedicated to providing practical steps of engaged spirituality for social change. He has served as spiritual leader and visionary in the New Thought movement, blending deep spiritual insight with a commitment to justice, compassion, and collective awakening. His message emphasizes evolving consciousness and living spiritual principles in everyday life. Throughout his career, Reverend Alexander has inspired individuals and communities to embody their highest potential and become agents of transformation in the world. He is known for his clarity, his humor, and his passion for truth, helping others expand into an ever-increasing capacity for greater good, not just for ourselves, but for the world. There you have him. Thank you very much. Welcome, Dr. David Alexander, Reverend Dr. David Alexander.
Wow. Thank you, Reverend Richard, and thank you, Unity of Davis. You're gonna have to send that to me. That's wonderful. I think AI got it right. That's fantastic. I've never thought of doing that before. It is a joy to be with you all today. Thank you again, Reverend Richard, for the invitation, and to all of your staff and reaching out to me. And I want to say as we begin to Joy Duffy that my heart is with you and all of the community as we lift up and celebrate John, and how wonderful to hear of the pillar that both he and you have been to this community. I am grateful to belong this morning to this sacred community, to be with you as a sacred sibling, as a fellow sojourner on this New Thought journey and tradition. And as mentioned, we just moved back to Portland, Oregon. My wife and I were here before my most recent stint at the Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta in Atlanta, Georgia, for the last about 6.5 years. And prior to that, 15 years at New Thought Center for Spiritual Living in Lake Oswego here in Greater Portland, and 17 years in Oregon. So it's kind of a familiarity of coming home, but also renewed in many, many ways. And so I'm grateful for all of that. I want to spend time this morning in sharing with you a bit of my spiritual journey, how spirituality has unfolded for me through the New Thought tradition of my youth. I grew up in this tradition, religious science in particular, and how it has expanded into my consciousness that I now carry through my justice work, through my book, The Freedom from Discord, and all of the other ways that I express. And before we dive right in, I do, again, just in part of my gratitudes to Unity of Davis's. This is my first Sunday back here in Oregon, and it was my wife who got a job with the city that brought us back. Everything was, fine in Atlanta, but the opportunity here in Portland was good for our family. And so many people have been asking me, because I've been doing pulpit ministry for 21 years, well, what are you going to do? And I said, besides my wife's answer to that, which is to be a house husband and make sure dinner's ready when she gets home, which I'm doing. I said, well, I'm going to teach online, virtually, and in person, wherever I'm invited, and continue my writing and do my Substack and all of that. And so even though this was scheduled with you all prior to my knowing that this is the time that I'd be leaving, you happen to be the very first virtual invitation that I've received and so you're helping me embody the new me, right? the new era of my journey. So thank you for that. I think it's divine timing. And so with all of that, my title today, Wholeness is Your Nature. The subtitle or the continuation of that line is Wholeness is Your Nature, Evolution is Your Design. Wholeness is my nature, it's your nature, it's our nature. But evolution is our design. And there's a beautiful sort of yin and yang within that idea, right? An inner and outer, an idea that wholeness is who and what we are. We are born in wholeness. We are expressing, we are wholeness manifest through our being. And at the same time, as you have expressed in your vision and mission statements as a community, that you are part of the evolutionary impulse of the universe, and that this spirit, whole as it is that you are, is designed to evolve. You're designed to grow, to learn, to expand, to know more than you did last year, and to be more, and to continue to reach, and all of that. And so I think that this idea of our wholeness and our evolutionary nature is at the heart of what I sense as a deep spiritual ache within the soul of our nation, the ache of separation, the ache of disempowerment, the ache of lack of connection, even though technologically we are more connected than we've ever been before, as you are a virtual ministry. Yet in many ways, socially, spiritually, politically, we're so divided, and we've seen that through so many things that I don't need to reiterate probably today. And yesterday we saw this huge explosion of this desire for connection, for something different, to a yearning, at the very least, to have a different reality being experienced. And so what do we do with all of that? Well, for me, and probably for you, for many years in New Thought, I understood the spiritual journey primarily as one of personal development or self-discovery, right? One that is grounded in this idea that consciousness is everything, and believing that our personal awakening, our discovery of our own wholeness, was the primary purpose of being alive, right? And if any part of you agrees with that, you like me have found a great friend in the teachings of the New Thought movement of unity and religious science and all of its other expressions. The teachings and practices and the affirmations all point to that inner realization that you are to wake up and to know who it is that you have come here to be. And that's all beautiful and wonderful and good. And I, like you, have done that for many, many years. But as my ministry evolved, as my social justice self began to awaken, I also began to critique that path a little bit, because I saw how the sole focus on the personal development could at times become too individualistic, too self-centered, perhaps even nihilistic, a spirituality that was all about me and not enough about we. What do we do with the collective? What, as I said in my book, what good is your spiritual awakening if your neighbor is suffering, right? And so finding that balance between those things, I came to see that this journey, this desire to find our center, to know our worth, is a natural and necessary part of our spiritual evolution. In the spiritual journey of life, it is natural to seek our wholeness. And most of us do so from some kind of broken place. We arrive at New Thought churches through life events, battered perhaps by certain events or circumstances, choices and disappointments. And we come searching for healing, for meaning, for a place to land, for some, again, sense of wholeness. And we find within the teachings of New Thought a radical teaching that says, you were never broken to begin with. You've always been whole. Wholeness is your nature. Wholeness is not something to be achieved. It's who you are. You were born out of wholeness. You live within wholeness because God is all that there is. You can never fall outside of it because there is no outside of it. Right? What a revelation, what a freedom, what a joy that brings, what a liberated sense of spiritual empowerment that is, right? And I want to honor that. But, and this is an important but, the realization of our wholeness is not meant to end with just the self. It calls us outward into deeper participation within all of life around us. Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, says in, I believe this is in This Thing Called You, the book called This Thing Called You. He says, you belong to the universe in which you live. You are one with the creative genius back of this vast array of ceaseless motion. You are as much a part of it as the sun, the earth, and the air. He reminds us in this passage that everything in nature carries the same creative impulse. The rose reaches to bloom. The artist compels to bring forward, he says, beauty from a stone, a soul that seeks to express its divine pattern. You are all born with an urge towards life, towards belonging, towards connection. And yet the personal path of development, no matter how successful, eventually leads us to the threshold of a greater question, which is, where do I belong? Now that I know who I am, where do I belong? A few years ago, I began to ask myself this question, and this quest that was not only from the individual level of wholeness, but also this idea of belonging from a cosmic level. The great author James Baldwin said, home, this about home. He said, perhaps home is not a place, but simply an irrevocable condition. Perhaps home is not a place, but simply an irrevocable condition. The irrevocable condition is that you are always home because you are always whole. Home, belonging, connection. These are not luxuries of life. These are the very ground of our being. And so this idea of spiritually belonging to the universe in which we live, one of the early influences on my consciousness and ministry was the book, The Coming of the Cosmic Christ by Matthew Fox. Perhaps you're familiar with it. And in it, he says, when a civilization is without a cosmology or a collective understanding of its belonging in the universe, it is not only cosmically violent, but it is also cosmically lonely and depressed. He goes on to say that perhaps our social ills, our addictions, our alienation, our violence are not moral failures, but spiritual symptoms of a cosmic loneliness, a hunger for belonging. We live in a time of what we would call perhaps a spiritual starvation. Starvation in which, spiritual starvation in which my friend Sharif Abdullah says the symptoms are everywhere, the symptoms of violence and anger, escapist behavior, going numb, the urge to control or manipulate. But the cure is not more self-improvement. And this is what I really came to share with you today. The cure is not more individualistic self-improvement. See, the individualistic mindset and path would say that at each point of suffering, one only needs to wake up to their wholeness. So if enough people just wake up to their wholeness, so you work on you and you wake up to your wholeness, and oh, they're suffering over there. Well, they just need to wake up to their wholeness. But if God is all there is, and there's no separation, and we're always home because we're part of this infinite inclusivity, then you and I are here waking up to that spiritual truth. Now, the answer is not more individual waking up. The answer is in those who supposedly claim to be spiritually awake, realizing that they belong to the allness of humanity's experience in this moment, that their waking up did not separate them from the pain of the world. That while, yes, you are discovering who you are in your wholeness, that waking up did not isolate you from the pain of the world. Rather, it should connect you even more so to it. You see, it's belonging. The answer is more belonging, belonging to each other, belonging to the earth, belonging to our neighbor, belonging to all of it. It's a Buddhist teacher, Reverend Angel Williams, who says it this way. She says, without inner change, there can be no outer change. I think most of us here are probably familiar with that idea. Without inner change, there can be no outer change. It's about that individual awakening. It's about that awareness of my consciousness and my beliefs and thoughts and attitudes, etc. Without inner change, there can be no outer change. But here's the second part of her quote. Without collective change, no change matters. Without collective change, no change matters. So while it's true that without inner work, there can be no outer change, it's also true that without the collective shift, no change matters. Or as people who know me know that I'm very big on social justice, particularly on race relations in America, but also around the world, and the consciousness and constructs of whiteness, which perhaps we'll talk about later. And then that's my particular passion, although from a social justice standpoint, there are dozens and dozens of issues. My environmentalist friends express the truth of this quote all the time to me when they say, well, that's great, and I love that you're passionate about that, but without an earth to be on, right? Without a living planet that's habitable, your work for racial change kind of doesn't matter unless we get this planet thing right. And of course, it's all true at the same time, right? It's not about choosing one or the other, but it's that idea without collective change, no change matters. Brene Brown says this of belonging. She says, and I'm sure you've heard this before, is often quoted, Brene Brown, belonging is the innate human desire to be part of something larger than us. Because this yearning is so primal, we often try to acquire it by fitting in, by seeking approval, which are hollow substitutes. True belonging, she says, only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. And that brings us back to wholeness, accepting ourselves as whole, perfect, and complete right where we are, and embracing our evolution to grow, to change, to evolve, to expand our thinking, to challenge our own biases and assumptions about the world. This is big work. It's sacred work. But if we stop at the individual level of awakening, we risk becoming just spiritual consumers, seekers chasing the next awakening without ever turning that consciousness into compassion. Our mantra as a movement cannot simply be, well, just do your consciousness work as the world cries out for justice. Right? Tell that to the single mother who doesn't know where the next meal is coming from. Tell that to the trans child whose state has outlawed their own beingness and their health care. Tell that to the millions living in poverty. This is where our theology of and our spirituality of wanting a world that works for everyone, or a world awakened by love, must take on flesh. Howard Thurman, the great mystic and inspiration and teacher to Martin Luther King Jr., he says, you cannot love humanity anonymously or universally. You cannot love humanity anonymously or universally. He says, you have to put, essentially, he says, you have to put flesh on it. You can love Richard, you can love David, you can love Donna, you can love, right? You can love those, you love individuals, but you can't love humanity universally because it's a specific thing. And so too is our vision for the world. Many of us in New Thought carry some version of this idea of creating a world that works for everyone. And that idea is not an abstract idea. That idea is a very concrete, specific idea. We can tell if the world is working for everyone or if it's not. It's not just a flowery statement to lean back into and go, isn't that, peace on earth, kumbaya. It has tangibility to it, right? And so we have to get our hands dirty and get in there in that way. And so I believe that we are living, you and I, in a moment that calls for a regrounding of our faith, not merely as a reformation of old ideas, but as a spiritual renaissance that unites mysticism and justice, consciousness and compassion, a true spiritual awakening that critiques both the psyche and society, both mysticism and public policy, the practice and the presence, consciousness on one end, justice and public life on the other. And in the middle, the prophetic voice that serves to bridge the gap through belonging. Our work, beloveds, is to return to belonging by claiming and reclaiming our wholeness, to remember that we are born in this time and that we belong to all of it. You see, wholeness is our truth, but when we look at it through the lens of belonging, what happens is just the word change, right? We're wordsmith people as a faith practice, right? And belonging is relational. When I say I'm whole, okay, when I say I belong, it kind of becomes this immediate journey the mind goes on to what, to who, to where, right? And the answer is because I'm whole and because God is all there is, I belong to all of it. I belong to the things that I like. I belong to the things that I don't like. I belong to the people I agree with. I belong to the people I don't agree with. I belong to all the people that were marching. I belong to all the people that weren't marching. I belong to all the people that were happy people were marching. I belong to all the people that were not happy that people were marching. I belong to all of it because God is all there is. And when I begin to accept that as the nature of my wholeness, then I begin to see what my work is to do in the world. It's not to separate and say, well, I'm part of this group over here and not that group over there, but rather to look at the parts that I don't like and say, I belong to that too. Now, what's my relationship to it? Because it's only through relationship that we will heal. It's only through relationship that we will transform. Because we go back to the individual self, that's exactly what healed you when you came into the New Thought Center, right? Wholeness is all that there is. You belong to this moment. And through that relationship of you understanding your connection to the divine, a shift occurred. Your relationships got better, your finances got better, your health got better, your life got better, because there was a relationship of belonging taking place in your awareness and your consciousness and living out. And so finally, I'll close with this. Again, James Baldwin, who says, all is not lost. All is not lost. Responsibility can never be lost. It can only be abdicated. But when one refuses abdication, one begins again. And so we begin again, afresh and anew in this moment. That new thought teaches us that we belong to wholeness. And when we awaken to that truth, we discover that we belong to the wounds of the world. And it is then and only then that we become healing agents of change and transformation. Or as, again, my teacher, Ernest Holmes, said, there is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. And that life is my life now. Thank you all for having me today. Peace and blessings.